I am Kenneth Turner, 76 years old, retired literature professor, widower, and for the past 18 months my daughter-in-law has been systematically poisoning me. I discovered this on December 22nd, sitting in my recliner in the living room I've owned for 33 years. The room was warm. Christmas lights blinked on the tree Stephen and Isaiah had put up the week before. My body felt heavy limbs like lead, exactly the way Amanda wanted me to feel. She thought I was half asleep when she whispered to my son in the kitchen. Thought the drugs had done their job. Thought I was too far gone to understand what she was saying. "We'll kick him out after Christmas," she said. Her voice carried that particular tone white women use when they think no one important is listening. "I already called Shady Oaks. They have a bed ready January 3rd. "Are you sure about this?" Stephen asked. My son, my only child, the boy I raised to question injustice. And here he was questioning only the timing. "Look at him," Amanda hissed. I could hear her moving closer to the doorway, probably pointing at me slumped in my chair, drooling like an idiot. The pills work perfectly. Once he's committed, we get power of attorney. And this house is ours. $950,000. Free and clear. I kept my breathing steady, slow, even. The way I'd learned to do during faculty meetings when colleagues assumed I wasn't paying attention. The way black men learn to do when we need to hear what people really think. My hand rested on the arm of the chair, fingers loose, but underneath my phone was recording. Had been recording for 3 weeks. Every conversation, every whispered plan, every casual cruelty Amanda thought I was too drugged to notice. She had no idea I'd been dumping that morning coffee for weeks. No idea that the confusion and drowsiness she'd been cultivating so carefully had started to clear. No idea that the man she thought was slipping into dementia had actually been a literature professor for 38 years. That I knew how to recognize a story, how to spot the villain, how to wait for the right moment to turn the page. If you've ever watched someone you trusted destroy your life while smiling to your face, you need to hear what happened next. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't anger. It's patience. It's documentation. It's letting evil people hang themselves with their own rope while you record every word. The blood test results would change everything. The video footage would confirm what I already knew. The lawyer I'd contacted would ensure Amanda faced every consequence she deserved. But let me back up and tell you how I got here. How a man who spent 4 decades teaching James Baldwin and Toni Morrison to college students ended up pretending to be senile so his white daughter-in-law would reveal her plan to steal everything my wife Dorothy and I had built. Before we continue, I want you to understand something. This isn't just about elder abuse. This isn't just about a woman stealing from her father-in-law. This is about what happens when people see your age, see your race, see your grief, and decide you're weak enough to exploit. Amanda made a fatal miscalculation. She thought being old made me vulnerable. She thought being black meant no one would believe me. She thought being widowed meant I had nothing left to fight for. She was wrong about all 3. And by the time I was finished, she'd understand exactly what it means to underestimate a man who spent his entire life proving people wrong. February 15th, 2023. The day after we buried Dorothy. That's when it started, though I didn't know it then. Grief has a way of making everything feel wrong so you don't notice when something is actually wrong. Amanda had been so helpful during Dorothy's final months, making casseroles, running errands, sitting with Dorothy when I needed to step away and just breathe. She'd seemed like the daughter we never had, the kind of care that made Stephen look at his wife with gratitude and pride. The morning after the funeral, I came downstairs to find Amanda in my kitchen, already dressed, already moving with purpose while I was still trying to remember how to function. "You need to keep your strength up, Dad," she said, bringing me a cup of coffee. "I made it just how you like it. Strong, 2 sugars." I hadn't asked her to make coffee, hadn't asked her to be there at all. But grief makes you accept kindness without questioning it. Makes you think people are helping when they might be doing something else entirely. I believed her. God help me, I believed her. By April, something was wrong. Every morning around 10, I'd feel this crushing fatigue, like someone had unplugged me. My thoughts would get fuzzy, words wouldn't come right. I'd be mid-sentence and suddenly couldn't remember what I was trying to say. During family dinners, I'd lose track of conversations, forget names of colleagues I'd worked with for decades, mix up dates, repeat myself without realizing it. It's grief, Amanda told Stephen, and his age. Dad's turning 77 soon. He needs to be patient with himself. I was 76, had been for 3 months. But I was too tired to correct her, too confused to wonder why she kept adding years to my age like she was in a hurry for me to be older than I was. The morning drowsiness became routine. Coffee at 8:30, brain fog by 10, nap by noon. I'd wake up disoriented, unsure what day it was, what I'd been doing before I fell asleep. Amanda started staying over more often, helping out, she said, making sure I was eating right, taking my blood pressure, organizing my medications even though I'd been managing my own pills for 76 years without issue. She'd bring my morning coffee to the study where I used to grade papers back when I could still focus long enough to read a full paragraph. Here you go, Dad. You really should rest more. Men your age need to be careful about overexertion. Men my age. She said it the way white people do when they're trying to sound concerned but really mean something else. Something about capacity, about decline, about knowing your place. One morning in May, I heard her on the phone with someone. I was supposed to be napping, but I'd woken up early, still groggy, trying to make it to the bathroom. No, he's getting worse, she said, voice low, but not quite low enough. More confused. I'm looking into memory care facilities, just preliminary research. You know, for someone like him. Someone like him, not someone his age, not someone with his condition, someone like him, like... I stood in the hallway, swaying slightly, trying to process what that phrase meant, trying to understand why it felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. By June, Amanda was accompanying me to doctor visits. She'd sit in the examination room answering questions before I could, describing symptoms I wasn't sure I actually had. He's been so confused lately, she'd tell Dr. Patterson, forgetting to turn off the stove, wandering the house at night, getting aggressive when we try to help him. I hadn't forgotten anything, hadn't wandered, hadn't raised my voice once, but sitting there groggy and disoriented from whatever was in that morning coffee, I couldn't form the words to argue, couldn't organize my thoughts fast enough to contradict her. The routine became a cage I didn't know I was in. 8:30, Amanda would appear with coffee. By 9, she'd have left for her yoga class or her volunteer work or whatever story she was using that day. By 10, I'd be useless, nodding off in my chair, struggling to remember my own phone number. By noon, I'd be asleep, and when I woke, hours had passed and I couldn't account for any of them. That's when the financial changes started. But I was too foggy to notice, too tired to question, too conditioned by decades of being a black man in white spaces to trust my own perception when a white woman was telling everyone I was confused. Amanda was counting on that, counting on my age, counting on my grief, counting on every assumption people make about old black men who've lost their wives. She'd made a fatal miscalculation, but it would take me months to realize it. That's when the financial changes started. June. A Tuesday morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table trying to make sense of the bills scattered in front of me. They kept swimming in and out of focus. Numbers that should have made sense just didn't. Dad, you really shouldn't be handling your own accounts anymore, Stephen said. He'd come over for what he called a wellness check. Amanda stood behind him, arms folded, face arranged in concern. She gestured to 3 envelopes on the counter. I found these unpaid bills yesterday when I was tidying up. Electric, water, your homeowner's insurance, all past due. I stared at those envelopes. I'd never seen them before. Never received notices about past due anything. My bills were on autopay. Had been for years. Dorothy had set it up that way back when online banking was still new. But sitting there head foggy from that morning's coffee, I couldn't organize my thoughts fast enough to say that. Couldn't explain that those bills shouldn't exist because they were already being paid. We're just looking out for you, Amanda said, reaching for my checkbook. Let me help with the monthly expenses. You have enough to worry about. My pension was $3,200 a month. The house had been paid off for 8 years. Dorothy and I had scrimped and saved for decades to clear that mortgage. My expenses shouldn't have been more than $1,800 monthly. Less probably now that I was alone. But somehow by August, I was always broke. Where does my money go? I asked Amanda one morning. It was one of my clearer days. The coffee hadn't hit yet. My mind felt almost sharp. She smiled, that patient smile, the one that made me feel like a child asking why the sky is blue. Medications are expensive, Dad. Your Ambien alone is $84 monthly. and with your other prescriptions, the co-pays add up fast. Ambien. That word sat in my kitchen like a stone. I'd never taken Ambien in my life, never had trouble sleeping until Dorothy got sick. And even then, even during those long nights sitting by her hospital bed, I'd never needed medication. I just needed her to be okay. But the drugs in my system kept my thoughts too scattered to investigate, too fuzzy to call the pharmacy and ask what prescriptions were actually in my name, too tired to wonder why Amanda knew the price of a medication I'd never been prescribed. That was the first crack in their story, the first thread I should have pulled. By September, Amanda had access to everything. My bank accounts, my pension deposits, my credit cards. She'd take me to the bank, help me sign papers I couldn't quite focus on, explain that this was all for my protection. "You don't want to accidentally overdraw, do you?" she'd say. "This way I can make sure your bills are paid on time." What she didn't say was that my bills had always been paid on time. What she didn't mention was that the bills she'd found were bills she'd created, pulled from my mailbox, held back until they were past due, then scattered on my counter like evidence of my incompetence. The money disappeared in ways I couldn't track, couldn't question, couldn't prove, until I stopped drinking the coffee. But that wouldn't happen until November. 4 more months of watching my bank account drain while my thoughts stayed too scattered to understand why. 4 more months of Amanda's concerned face and Stephen's worried glances and my own growing certainty that something was terribly, terribly wrong. 4 more months of being gaslit by a woman who saw my age and my grief and my race and decided I was weak enough to rob. By October, Amanda was telling neighbors about my episodes. I found out from Mrs. Johnson, my neighbor of 22 years. She stopped me at the mailbox one afternoon, her face arranged in that particular expression of pity white people reserve for tragedies they're glad aren't happening to them. "I'm so sorry about what you're going through, Kenneth," she said, touching my arm like I might break. "Early onset dementia is just heartbreaking. Early onset dementia. I was 76 years old. There was nothing early about anything at my age." But I was too surprised to correct her. Amanda appeared from my front door like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "We're managing," she told Mrs. Johnson with a sad smile. "Some days are better than others. Yesterday was rough, but today he seems more present, like I was a ghost flickering in and out of existence. The isolation was systematic, surgical even. My weekly poker game with Ray, Jerome, and Paul, men I'd known for 30 years, men who'd helped me move into this house, who'd sat with me during Dorothy's chemotherapy, who knew me. Dad's not feeling up to it anymore," Amanda told them when they called. "The late nights are too hard on him now. Book club at the library. 20 years of discussing Baldwin and Morrison and Ellison with people who actually understood the work. Too overstimulating for him," Amanda explained to the organizer. "He gets confused in groups. Even my brother Leon stopped visiting after Amanda pulled him aside one afternoon and told him I'd become aggressive and unpredictable, that I'd thrown a coffee mug at her the week before, that I'd accused her of stealing from me. All lies, every single word. But Leon lived 3 hours away in Milwaukee. He didn't see me every day. Didn't know that I'd never raised my voice, never thrown anything, never accused anyone of anything because I'd been too drugged to form coherent thoughts. "It's safer if we limit his social interactions," Amanda told Stephen. "He gets agitated around people, starts making accusations. You know how it is." No, I didn't know how it was, because it wasn't happening. But by November, she'd convinced my family I needed supervision. Convinced them I was dangerous. Convinced them that the man who'd spent 4 decades teaching students to think critically had lost the ability to think at all. November 1st, the day everything changed. It happened by accident. That morning, I'd knocked over the coffee mug, reaching for my reading glasses. Hot liquid spread across my desk, soaking into papers I'd been pretending to read but couldn't actually focus on. Amanda quickly made a fresh cup, but I was already running late for what I thought was a doctor's appointment. Actually, it was just another day. I'd mixed up the calendar, but I grabbed my coat and left before drinking the replacement coffee. 4 hours later, sitting in my car in the library parking lot because I'd driven there out of habit, my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I could think, could follow complete thoughts from beginning to end, could remember what I'd had for breakfast, what day it was, what year it was. Could feel my own brain working the way it used to work. The fog had lifted, and in that clarity I understood what had been happening. That evening I did an experiment. When Amanda brought my morning coffee the next day, I dumped it in the kitchen sink when she wasn't looking, filled the mug with water from the tap, sat in my usual chair, and pretended to drink. Then I waited. No fatigue at 10, no confusion, no words slipping away mid-sentence. For the first time since February, I could think clearly, could read a full page and remember what I'd read, could follow the news without losing track of the story. The next morning, same thing. Dumped the coffee, filled the mug with water, pretended, waited. By the end of the week, I understood exactly what had been happening. The systematic drugging, the financial manipulation, the social isolation. Amanda wasn't just stealing my money, she was stealing my identity, my competence, my right to exist as a thinking person. But I needed proof, real proof that would stand up in court and expose her to my family. Proof that would make people believe a 76-year-old black man over a 42-year-old white woman with the right vocabulary and the right expressions of concern. That's when I drove to Best Buy and spent $89 on a digital recorder. Small, digital. The kind students used to use before everything moved to phones and laptops. The kind that could slip into a cardigan pocket and record for hours. Because if Amanda thought she could gaslight a man who'd spent 38 years teaching literature, analyzing deception, studying character motivation, understanding how stories really work, she'd made a fatal miscalculation. I was about to become the author of her downfall. I was about to document every lie, every theft, every whispered plan. My plan required perfect timing, but first I needed to know exactly what she was putting in my coffee every morning. I needed recordings of her real intentions. I needed evidence that would be undeniable. The blood test would come later, but the recordings would start tomorrow. She had no idea the war had just begun. December 5th, Tuesday morning. Amanda thought I was in my usual drug-induced stupor, slumped in my recliner with the empty coffee mug beside me. The Sony recorder was tucked inside my cardigan pocket, red light blinking where she couldn't see it. I kept my eyes half closed, breathing slow and steady while she paced the kitchen, talking on her phone. "The lawyer says we need medical documentation," she said. Her voice had that crisp efficiency she used when handling business. 3 physicians stating he's mentally incompetent. I kept perfectly still, listening, recording. "Dr. Harrison already signed off," she continued. "Says Kenneth shows clear signs of cognitive decline. I made sure to mention the gas burner incident and the wandering episode during our consultation. Both complete fabrications. I'd never left the stove on, never wandered anywhere. But Dr. Harrison hadn't questioned her, hadn't asked to speak with me alone, hadn't wondered why a woman would drive her father-in-law to appointments but answer all the questions herself. "Dr. Stevens from the memory clinic will see him next week," Amanda said. "I've already briefed him about Kenneth's condition. The 3rd signature should be easy. I found a neurologist who specializes in these cases." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about the house. This was about having me declared legally incompetent, about taking everything while I was still alive to watch it happen. "Once we have the court order, everything transfers," she said. "The house, his pension, the life insurance payout from Dorothy's death, life insurance, Dorothy's $50,000 policy, the one I'd planned to leave to Isaiah for college, the one I'd been keeping untouched because it felt like the last thing Dorothy had given us, the last way she could help her grandson build a future." Amanda's voice got clearer as she moved toward the living room, probably checking to make sure I was still asleep. "The property appraiser came yesterday while Stephen was at work. $950,000. Can you believe that? Almost $1 million for this old place?" She paused. I could hear ice cubes clinking in a glass, probably making herself tea. Comfortable, confident. The nursing home is perfect. Shady Oaks Memory Care. Once he's committed, we can visit twice a year and play the grieving family. Meanwhile, we sell the house and move to Florida like we planned. Florida. They'd been planning this for months, planning my destruction, planning to take everything Dorothy and I had built together, planning to lock me away and forget I existed while they lived off my life's work. "The beauty is, it's all legal," Amanda continued. "Power of attorney for an incompetent relative. The court will thank us for taking such good care of poor confused Kenneth. A confused old black man who can't manage his own affairs anymore, who needs white saviors to protect him from himself." She didn't say that last part out loud, didn't need to. I could hear it in every word she did say, in the casual cruelty of visit twice a year, in the easy assumption that no one would question her, that doctors would believe her, that courts would side with her. Because that's how it works, isn't it? A white woman with the right clothes and the right vocabulary and the right expression of concern, against an old black man who can't quite get his words out, who seems confused, who fits every stereotype about aging and decline that people carry in their heads, whether they admit it or not. Stephen doesn't suspect anything, Amanda said. He thinks we're being good caregivers, doing the right thing for someone we love. That night, while Amanda was at her book club, the same book club she'd told everyone was too stimulating for my condition, I sat in my study and listened to the recording 3 times. 47 minutes of her voice. 47 minutes of casual planning for my imprisonment. 47 minutes of proof that would stand up in any court. But I needed more. I needed video evidence of the poisoning. I needed medical proof that my mind was sound. I needed to document not just what she said, but what she did. The war was just beginning, and this time I knew exactly what I was fighting for. That night, while Amanda was at her book club, I searched her purse. She'd left it on the kitchen counter. Designer leather, expensive, probably bought with my pension money. I opened it carefully, listening for the sound of her car in the driveway, ready to pretend confusion if she came back early. Inside, tucked behind her wallet, I found real estate listings. 3 of them. All for condos in Sarasota, Florida. Prices ranging from $400,000 to $600,000. Each one had notes in her handwriting. 2-bedroom. Ocean view, close to downtown. A sticky note was attached to the most expensive listing. Close on house by February 1st. Move by March. February 1st. 2 months away. She'd already set a timeline for stealing my home. But the most damning evidence was in a manila folder hidden behind her romance novels in the tote bag she carried everywhere. Power of attorney documents, already filled out, waiting for signatures. My name typed in the appropriate spaces. Stephen listed as primary attorney, Amanda as secondary. Both of them with full authority over my finances, my medical decisions, my property. Medical commitment papers for Shady Oaks Memory Care, dated January 3rd, just 9 days after Christmas. The day they planned to take me from my home and lock me away. And then I found it. A handwritten timeline in Amanda's precise cursive. The kind of planning document you'd make for a wedding or a vacation, except this was a schedule for destroying a human being. December 1st through 15th, secure medical opinions. December 16th through 25th, Christmas normal, don't upset Stephen. December 26th through 31st, file court papers. January 3rd, commitment. January 15th, POA hearing. February 1st, house closing. March 1st, Florida. She'd planned my entire destruction like a business transaction, like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed, a resource to be liquidated. Each date was written clearly, no hesitation in the handwriting, no crossed-out sections or second thoughts, just a clean, efficient schedule for stealing everything I had while I was still alive to know it was happening. I took photos of everything with my phone. The real estate listings, the POA documents, the commitment papers, the timeline. Every piece of evidence that showed this wasn't confusion or concern or caregiving. This was theft, planned, systematic, deliberate. Then I put everything back exactly where I'd found it. Closed her purse, walked back to my study, sat in my chair and looked at the photos on my phone. Proof. Undeniable proof that Amanda had been planning this for months. That every concerned expression, every helpful gesture, every morning coffee had been part of a larger plan to take everything and leave me with nothing. Not even my freedom, not even my name. She'd made one mistake. She'd written it all down, and now I had it all documented. The next phase of my plan could begin. The next morning I pretended to struggle with my oatmeal, spoon shaking slightly, missing my mouth, the performance of a man whose coordination was failing along with his mind. Amanda made another phone call. She'd gotten comfortable, careless, believing I was too far gone to understand what she was saying even when she stood 10 feet away. Dr. Harrison confirmed Kenneth for December 15th, she said into her phone. I told him about the bathroom accidents and the violent outbursts. He agreed we're past the point of in-home care. Bathroom accidents, violent outbursts. I'd had neither. Not once. Not ever. But Amanda needed documented incidents of physical decline and dangerous behavior for the commitment hearing, so she invented them, created a fictional version of me that justified locking me away. Stephen's starting to ask questions, though she continued voice-dropping slightly. Last night he said maybe Dad just needs different medication. Maybe we should try a different doctor before we consider memory care. My son. Still looking for alternatives, still believing his father could be helped rather than imprisoned. Still not understanding that his wife had already made the decision months ago. I know, Amanda said, sounding impatient. We're too close to back down now. I already put the deposit on the Sarasota condo. $20,000 down payment. The seller wanted proof we were serious. $20,000. I sat there with my spoon halfway to my mouth, oatmeal dripping back into the bowl, and did the math in my head. My pension was $3,200 a month. The house had no mortgage. My expenses were minimal. Where had $20,000 come from? From me. From my pension checks that Amanda had been redirecting for months. From my bank account she'd gotten access to by claiming I couldn't manage my own finances. From the life Dorothy and I had built through 40 years of teaching and saving and making careful choices. She'd stolen $20,000 and used it to buy a condo in Florida. Had already started building her new life with my money while planning to lock me away in a facility that cost $4,800 a month. The memory care facility wants $4,800 monthly, Amanda said, as if reading my thoughts. Insurance covers maybe half. But it doesn't matter. Once we sell the house, we're set for life. $950,000 minus what we owe on the condo. That's over $700,000. Even with Kenneth's care costs, we'll have enough to live comfortably for decades. Set for life. On my life's work. On the home Dorothy and I had paid off together. On money we'd saved for Isaiah's education and our own old age. I kept my face slack. Kept the oatmeal dripping. Kept the recorder running in my cardigan pocket. Every word she said was another nail in her own coffin. That afternoon, Amanda brought me my coffee with her usual smile. "Here you go, Dad. Your favorite." I watched her walk away, then carefully lifted the mug. In the bottom white residue that hadn't fully dissolved, I wet my finger and tasted it. Bitter, chalky, definitely not sugar. I poured the coffee into a mason jar I'd hidden behind my chair, the kind Dorothy used to use for canning vegetables from our garden. Sealed it tight, labeled it with the date in my own handwriting. Evidence, sample, number 1. The next morning I positioned myself where I could see into the kitchen through the doorway. Amanda thought I was reading the newspaper. Really, I was watching her reflection in the glass of the framed photo on the wall beside me. She started the coffee maker, normal enough. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a pill bottle, palmed something small and white, set it on the counter, crushed it with the back of a spoon, stirred the powder into my coffee mug, added extra cream to mask the taste. All of it reflected clearly in that glass. All of it burned into my memory. When she brought me the coffee, I thanked her, waited until she left for her morning yoga class, then poured sample number 2 into another mason jar. By December 10th, I had 5 samples, 5 separate days of Amanda crushing pills into my coffee, 5 pieces of physical evidence that would prove systematic poisoning. I also had 47 minutes of recorded conversations, Amanda unknowingly confessing to drugging me, to forging medical reports, to stealing my pension money, to planning my commitment against my will. But the most chilling recording came on December 12th. The best part is Kenneth will never know what hit him, she told whoever was on the other end of those calls. By the time he realizes what's happening, he'll be locked in memory care with no legal rights. Even if he tries to tell anyone, who's going to believe a demented old black man? She actually laughed. A light, casual laugh, like she was discussing a clever solution to a home renovation problem. Honestly, it's almost a mercy. What quality of life does he have anyway, sitting around feeling sorry for himself since Dorothy died? At least this way, his death will fund something useful. My death. She was already planning my death. That recording on December 12th changed everything. I was in my chair pretending to doze. The recorder was running. Amanda was on the phone again, pacing between the kitchen and the living room with that confident stride of someone who believes they're winning. The best part is Kenneth will never know what hit him, she said. Her voice carried that particular satisfaction people get when they think they've been clever. By the time he realizes what's happening, he'll be locked in memory care with no legal rights, no ability to contest anything, no way to fight back. She paused, listening to whoever was on the other end. Even if he tries to tell anyone, who's going to believe a demented old black man? His own son thinks he's losing it. The doctors I've chosen will back up everything I've said. And frankly, people expect men like him to decline at his age. It's almost like they want to believe it. Men like him. There it was, the thing she'd been dancing around for months, the assumption she'd been counting on, that my age plus my race plus my grief would make me invisible. Unbelievable, easy to dismiss. She'd been weaponizing every stereotype, every assumption, Every bit of unconscious bias she knew existed in doctors' offices and courtrooms in neighborhoods like this one. She'd counted on people seeing an old black man who seemed confused and not asking too many questions about why. I kept my breathing steady while rage burned in my chest, kept the recorder running, let her keep talking. Honestly, Amanda continued, it's almost a mercy. What quality of life does he have anyway? Sitting around in that house feeling sorry for himself since Dorothy died. No hobbies, no energy, just existing. I had hobbies. I'd had book club and poker night and morning walks and friends, until she'd systematically cut me off from all of them, until she'd drugged me into exhaustion, until she'd convinced everyone I was too far gone to maintain my own life. At least this way his death will fund something useful, she said. My death. She said it casually, easily, like she was talking about replacing a broken appliance. Like my death was an inevitable outcome she'd already factored into her financial planning. The nursing home statistics are actually in our favor, she continued. Average stay for someone with his level of impairment is 18 to 24 months. After that, we inherit everything outright. No more facility costs, just the house sale money and the life insurance and whatever's left of his pension. She was counting on me dying, counting on memory care to finish what she'd started, counting on having me declared incompetent, locked away, and then conveniently deceased within 2 years, so she and Stephen could start their Florida retirement without the burden of visiting an inconvenient father-in-law. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about stealing my house or my money, this was about erasing me completely, about making me disappear while legally inheriting everything I'd worked for, about turning my life into their retirement fund. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I wasn't just fighting for my money or my freedom. I was fighting for my life. And the recording device in my cardigan pocket had captured every word of Amanda's plan to take it from me. That night, I made a decision. No more waiting, no more just collecting evidence. It was time to bring in professionals. Time to turn this from a family dispute into a criminal investigation. Time to make sure Amanda faced every consequence she deserved. December 13th, Wednesday morning. I sat in my study staring at 5 mason jars of drugged coffee and a digital recorder full of Amanda's confessions. The evidence was damning, but I needed more than her word against mine. I needed medical proof. Scientific proof that would stand up in court and couldn't be dismissed as the confusion of an old man. The appointment with Dr. Harrison was in 2 days, Amanda's hand-picked neurologist who would rubber stamp my mental incompetence based entirely on her lies. If I showed up confused and disoriented as expected, he'd sign the papers that would lock me away forever. But if I showed up completely lucid, Amanda would know her drug scheme had failed, would know I'd figured it out, would accelerate her timeline or find another way to neutralize me. That's when I realized the beautiful simplicity of my situation. Amanda had given me the perfect cover story for my own investigation. Everyone already thought I was confused. One more doctor's appointment wouldn't raise suspicion. I called Dr. Lisa Foster's office. She'd been Dorothy's oncologist, someone who actually knew me before Amanda's campaign of destruction. Someone who'd sat with us through the worst moments of our lives and had seen me make clear, rational decisions under impossible pressure. I'd like to schedule some private blood work, I told her nurse. Comprehensive toxicology screening. Is this related to your current treatment, Mr. Turner? No, I said carefully. I have some concerns about medications I may have been given without my knowledge. There was a pause on the line. Then Dr. Foster can see you this afternoon. 2:00. Can you come alone? Yes. I can come alone. That afternoon I drove myself to Dr. Foster's office. Took back streets to avoid being seen, parked in the rear lot, moved quickly through the back entrance she'd arranged. Kenneth, she said when I walked into the private examination room. You look remarkably well for someone with advancing dementia. That's because I don't have dementia, Lisa. I have a daughter-in-law with a pill crusher and a real estate scheme. Her expression shifted from confusion to alarm as I explained the 18-month timeline, the morning coffee routine, the systematic isolation, the forged medical reports, the stolen pension money, the plan to have me committed. I need you to test my blood for sedatives, I said, and I need documentation that my cognitive function is normal. She drew 3 vials of blood without another word. Then she spent 30 minutes administering cognitive tests. Memory recall, pattern recognition, problem-solving exercises, the kind of tests that reveal whether a mind is actually failing or just being told that it is. When she finished, she set down her clipboard and looked at me with something between relief and fury. Kenneth, your test scores are in the 95th percentile for your age group. There's nothing wrong with your mind. Then why do I feel foggy and confused every morning after coffee? Because someone is drugging you. These blood samples will tell us what and how much. While we waited for the lab to process the results, she made notes. Detailed documentation of my cognitive function. Dated. Signed. Notarized by her office manager who came in as a witness. This will stand up in court, she said. Whatever's happening to you, we'll have proof. The lab results came back faster than I expected. Dr. Foster had marked them urgent, called in a favor. When she showed me the printout, her jaw was tight. Kenneth, you have 2.3 milligrams of zolpidem in your system. That's a full therapeutic dose of Ambien. Taken daily for months, it would cause exactly the symptoms you've described. Memory problems, confusion, drowsiness, difficulty with speech and coordination. Is that enough to prove I'm being poisoned? It's enough to put someone in prison, she said grimly. This isn't an accidental overdose. This is systematic drugging. And combined with your cognitive test scores, it proves beyond doubt that you don't have dementia. You have a daughter-in-law who's been poisoning you. She made copies of everything. Blood test results showing the zolpidem. Cognitive assessment showing my perfect scores. Her medical opinion stating clearly that I showed no signs of cognitive impairment whatsoever. I want you to know something, Kenneth, she said as I was leaving. Dorothy would be proud of how you're handling this. She always said you were the strongest man she'd ever known. Not loud about it, not aggressive, just unbreakable. I had to look away, had to blink hard. Make sure your daughter-in-law faces every consequence, Dr. Foster continued. Women like that count on people being too polite to fight back, too embarrassed to make a scene, too tired to pursue justice. I'm not too tired, I said. Not anymore. That afternoon, while Amanda was at what she called her volunteer work, I drove to Best Buy and purchased a Wise security camera. $36. Tiny thing, no bigger than a golf ball. Wireless capability and smartphone alerts. The young man at the counter showed me how to set it up, how to connect it to my phone, how to access the footage remotely. He probably thought I was worried about package thieves or break-ins. I didn't correct him. That evening, while Amanda was upstairs talking to Stephen on the phone, I installed the camera behind the bread box on my kitchen counter. The angle was perfect. Direct view of the coffee maker. Clear sight line to where Amanda stood every morning when she prepared my coffee. I tested it 3 times to make sure the footage was clear. Made sure the motion sensor worked. Made sure I could access the recording from my phone. Then I went to bed early, claiming exhaustion. Let Amanda think the drugs were still working. Let her feel safe. The next morning, I stayed upstairs until 8:45. Listened to Amanda moving around in the kitchen. Heard the coffee maker start. Waited until I heard her footsteps heading toward the living room. Then I checked my phone. The camera had recorded everything. 8:47 a.m. Amanda enters kitchen humming softly, wearing her yoga clothes, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. 8:49 a.m. She reaches into her purse on the counter, retrieves a small pill bottle. Orange prescription bottle with a white cap. She palms 2 tablets, sets them on the counter, takes a spoon from the drawer, uses the back of the spoon to crush the tablets into fine white powder. 8:51 a.m. She scrapes the powder into my coffee mug. The blue one Dorothy gave me for Father's Day 15 years ago. Stirs it carefully with the spoon, adds cream from the refrigerator, extra cream, stirs again, rinses the spoon and puts it back in the drawer. 8:52 a.m. She picks up the mug, arranges her face into an expression of gentle concern, and walks toward my study. All of it captured in high-definition video. Clear. Undeniable. The kind of evidence that doesn't require anyone to believe my word over hers. The kind of evidence that speaks for itself. I watched the footage 3 times, saved it to my phone, backed it up to the cloud, downloaded it to a USB drive that I hid in my desk drawer. Then I went downstairs and accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. Thanked Amanda for being so thoughtful. Told her I didn't know what I'd do without her. She patted my shoulder. You just rest, Dad. That's all you need to do. Just rest. I dumped the coffee into the potted plant beside my chair as soon as she left. The same plant that had been slowly dying for weeks from her daily doses of poison. By noon, I had everything I needed. Medical proof, video evidence, audio recordings, documentary evidence. Now I just needed to call the police. That afternoon I made copies of everything. Blood test results showing the zolpidem poisoning, video footage of Amanda crushing pills into my coffee, audio recordings of her admitting to fraud theft and planning my commitment, photos of her handwritten timeline, screenshots of the real estate listings and POA documents, 3 complete sets, every piece of evidence documented, dated, organized. The first set went into my safe deposit box at First National Bank, the one Amanda didn't know existed, the one I'd opened 40 years ago when Dorothy and I first bought the house. The second set went to Patricia Monroe, my attorney. Patricia had handled Dorothy's estate, had known us for 25 years, knew I was sharp, competent, exactly the opposite of what Amanda had been telling people. I handed her a manila envelope along with the evidence. "What's this?" she asked. "A sealed letter explaining the situation. If anything happens to me, if I'm suddenly committed to a nursing home or declared incompetent, open this envelope and call the police immediately." Patricia looked at me carefully, studying my face, my eyes, the way I held myself. "Kenneth, you seem completely lucid to me. That's because I am. But tomorrow I'm going to start the performance of my lifetime. I'm going to let Amanda think her drugs are still working, let her believe I'm confused, helpless, ready to be locked away. Why? Because I need her to commit fully, need her to file those court papers, need her to show up at that commitment hearing, need her to believe she's won right up until the moment the police arrest her." Patricia sat back in her chair. "You're setting a trap. I'm letting her walk into one she built herself. All I'm doing is making sure she can't back out when she realizes what's happening. And if something goes wrong, then you open that envelope. Call Detective Carmen Rodriguez at Minneapolis PD. I've already briefed her. She's waiting for my signal." Patricia shook her head slowly. "In 30 years of practicing law, I've never seen anyone handle elder abuse this methodically. I spent 38 years teaching literature, teaching students how stories work, how villains reveal themselves, how patience and documentation matter more than confrontation." She stood up, shook my hand. "Be careful, Kenneth. I will be. But Amanda should be the one who's careful. She just doesn't know it yet." I left Patricia's office with the third set of evidence in my briefcase. This set was for Detective Rodriguez, for the moment when Amanda made her final move and I made mine. Christmas morning would be her last as a free woman, but she had no idea the trap was already closing. Had no idea that every lie she'd told, every pill she'd crushed, every dollar she'd stolen had been documented. Had no idea that the confused old black man she thought she was exploiting had been 3 steps ahead of her the entire time. December 15th. The appointment that was supposed to seal my fate. That morning I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I drank the coffee. All of it. Every poisoned drop. Amanda's drugs hit my system like a freight train. Within 20 minutes, the familiar fog rolled in. Thoughts scattered. Words slipped away. Limbs felt heavy. But this time, I was ready for it. This time, I had witnesses who knew I was acting. This time, the recorder in my jacket pocket was capturing every fraudulent word. Amanda drove me to Dr. Harrison's office, helped me out of the car like I couldn't manage on my own, guided me through the parking lot with her hand on my elbow, performing concern for anyone who might be watching. "Dr. Harrison, this is my father-in-law, Kenneth," she said when we entered the examination room. "As I mentioned on the phone, his condition has deteriorated rapidly over the past few months." Dr. Harrison was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45. Expensive suit, smooth confidence that comes from rubber-stamping difficult family decisions without asking too many questions. "Tell me about his symptoms," he said. Not to me, to Amanda, like I wasn't even there. Memory loss, confusion, wandering episodes, she ticked them off like items on a grocery list. Yesterday he asked me 4 times what year it was. He left the stove on Tuesday. Last week I found him outside at 2 a.m. in his pajamas. All lies. Every single one. But Dr. Harrison nodded sympathetically, taking notes, without once looking at me. Has he had any violent outbursts? Just last week he threw a coffee mug at me, screamed that I was trying to poison him. Amanda's voice carried exactly the right note of patient suffering. The paranoia is getting worse. I sat there, letting my head droop, occasionally mumbling incoherently, the perfect picture of advancing dementia. The drugs made it easy, made the performance real enough that even a careful observer would believe it. Dr. Harrison finally turned to me. "Mr. Turner, can you tell me what month this is?" I stared at him blankly. let confusion cloud my eyes. December. Kenneth, Amanda prompted gently. We're at the doctor's office, remember? I looked around the room like I'd never seen it before. Where are we? For 20 minutes I gave the performance of my life. Stumbled over simple questions. Forgot Amanda's name mid-sentence. Asked repeatedly why we were there. Mixed up basic facts. Showed every sign of cognitive decline that Dr. Harrison was expecting to see. He exchanged knowing glances with Amanda, made more notes, asked questions I deliberately answered wrong. I'm sorry to say this confirms what you suspected, he told Amanda. Moderate to severe cognitive impairment, progressive, irreversible. I'll prepare the documentation for memory care placement. How quickly can we move forward? Amanda asked. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the excitement underneath. His safety is our primary concern. I can have the papers ready by Monday. You mentioned Shady Oaks. Yes, they have excellent memory care facilities, very specialized. They do excellent work. I've referred several patients there. Dr. Harrison signed something, handed it to Amanda. This should be everything you need for the commitment hearing. Thank you, doctor. Amanda squeezed my hand. The gesture probably looked compassionate to him. To me, it felt like a predator's grip. We just want what's best for him. Of course, it's clear you've been very devoted. Everything was falling into place exactly as she'd planned, except for one detail she didn't know about. The recorder in my jacket had captured every fraudulent word, every lie Amanda told, every question Dr. Harrison asked without actually examining me, every diagnosis made based entirely on one person's manufactured evidence. That evening, while Amanda celebrated with Stephen over dinner, I uploaded the audio to my laptop, backed it up 3 separate ways, added it to the evidence file. One more piece of proof, one more nail in her coffin. The performance had been exhausting. The drugs were still in my system, making everything fuzzy, but underneath the fog I felt something clear and cold, satisfaction. Because Dr. Harrison had just signed his name to a fraudulent diagnosis, had just provided documentation for an illegal commitment, had just made himself an accessory to elder abuse and fraud, and I had recorded every second of it. Christmas morning was 9 days away. 9 days for Amanda to feel confident. 9 days for her to believe she'd won. 9 days before I pulled the trap shut and showed her exactly what happened when you underestimated a man who'd spent his life teaching people how to think critically. December 18th brought Amanda's most damaging confession yet. I was pretending to nap in my recliner, the recorder running as always. Amanda thought I was deep in my usual drug-induced stupor. She paced the living room freely, phone pressed to her ear, voice confident and clear. The commitment papers are signed. January 3rd, we drive him to Shady Oaks and walk away. It's done. She paused, listening. I could hear ice clinking in her glass. Probably her afternoon wine. The expensive kind she'd started buying with my pension money. No, Stephen doesn't know about the house sale yet. I told him we're just looking into options for Kenneth's care. He thinks we'll visit every week. Bring Isaiah for holidays. Keep it normal. Another pause. Longer this time. Are you kidding? Once Kenneth is locked up, we're gone. Stephen can visit his demented father alone if he wants. We'll be in Sarasota by March. Isaiah can spend summers with us instead of wasting time visiting some nursing home. My grandson. She was planning to separate Isaiah from me permanently, to take him away to Florida where I'd become nothing more than a name he vaguely remembered, the confused old grandfather who disappeared when he was 12. The beauty is, it's all legal, Amanda continued. Power of attorney lets me sell everything. The house, his car, whatever furniture doesn't come with us. I've already got buyers lined up. The realtor says we can close by February 1st if we price it right. She moved closer to where I sat. I kept my breathing steady, eyes closed, body slack. And if he dies in that place, which honestly wouldn't be the worst thing, we inherit everything free and clear. No more facility costs, no more pretending to care, just the life insurance and whatever assets are left. She actually said it. Hoped for my death, calculated it into her financial planning, spoke about it as casually as someone discussing the weather. The nursing home statistics are in our favor, she said. Average stay for someone with his level of impairment is 18 to 24 months. Stephen doesn't need to know that. He can think we're being devoted while we're actually in Florida living our lives. 18 to 24 months. She'd researched how long she'd have to wait for me to die. Had factored my death into her timeline like it was an inevitable business expense. 18 months of planning, but it's finally paying off. By New Year's, we'll effectively be millionaires. The house alone is worth $950. Add the life insurance, his pension, buy out the investment accounts he thinks I don't know about. We're looking at over $1 million. Investment accounts. I had 2 small accounts Dorothy and I had set up for emergencies. $15,000 total. Money I'd been saving to help Isaiah with college someday. Amanda had found them, had already calculated them into her theft. "It's perfect," she said. "An old black man with dementia. No one questions it, no one investigates. They just assume he declined naturally and we did our best. Stephen gets to be the devoted son. I get to be the patient daughter-in-law. And we walk away with everything." She laughed. That same light, casual laugh I'd heard before. Sometimes I can't believe how easy this was. I sat there, recorder running, capturing every word, every calculated cruelty, every casual mention of my death as a convenient financial event. That night, I knew it was time. Time to stop collecting evidence. Time to call Detective Rodriguez. Time to make sure Amanda understood exactly how wrong she'd been about how easy this would be. That night, I called Detective Carmen Rodriguez at Minneapolis Police Department. Patricia Monroe had recommended her as someone who specialized in elder abuse cases. "Detective Rodriguez, I need to report a crime in progress. Multiple felonies involving elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Sir, can you come to the station and file a formal complaint? I can do better than that. I can provide video evidence, audio recordings, medical documentation, and a complete timeline of an 18-month drugging and theft scheme." There was a pause on the line. Then, "Can you be here tomorrow at 10? I'll be there." 24 hours later, I sat in Detective Rodriguez's office with 3 manila folders. She was younger than I'd expected. Maybe 40. Sharp eyes. The kind of person who'd seen enough to know when someone was telling the truth. "Mr. Turner," she said after I'd laid out everything. The blood tests showing deliberate poisoning. The video footage of Amanda crushing pills. The audio recordings of her admitting to fraud, forgery, theft, and planning my commitment. The timeline in her own handwriting. "This is one of the most comprehensive elder abuse cases I've ever seen. My daughter-in-law made a mistake," I said. "She assumed being old made me helpless. Being black made me unbelievable. Being widowed made me too grief-stricken to fight back. She was wrong about all 3. Detective Rodriguez studied the evidence carefully. "Your blood work alone is enough for criminal charges. Add the video and audio, and we have her on multiple felonies. Elder abuse in the 1st degree, fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy to commit involuntary commitment. I want her arrested, but I need you to wait until December 27th. She looked up. "Why the delay?" "Because Christmas morning, Amanda is going to tell my family that I'm too far gone to stay home. She's going to show them the commitment papers, show them Dr. Harrison's fraudulent diagnosis, explain how she's been protecting everyone from my dangerous behavior. You want your family to hear her lies before we arrest her. I want my son to understand exactly who he married. I want him to see her perform one last time before the truth comes out. I want Amanda to believe she's won right up until the moment the handcuffs click." Detective Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, studied me for a long moment. "You've been planning this." "No, I've been documenting this. There's a difference. Amanda planned it. I just made sure every step of her plan was recorded." "And you're certain about the timing? Christmas morning she has a timeline. December 26th through 31st, file court papers. January 3rd commitment. She'll make her move on Christmas because Stephen will be there, because she needs him to agree, because she thinks a family holiday will make him more compliant. What if she changes the timeline, moves faster? Then you arrest her immediately. Patricia Monroe has all the evidence. If anything happens to me before the 27th, she'll call you." Detective Rodriguez smiled for the first time. Grim, but genuine. "Mr. Turner, I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've seen a lot of elder abuse cases. Most of them, the victim doesn't realize what's happening until it's too late. You're the first person who's ever walked in here with this level of documentation. I'm a literature professor. I know how stories work. I know villains reveal themselves if you give them enough rope. We'll be ready on the 27th, plainclothes officers, parked outside your house, waiting for your signal." I stood to leave, shook her hand. "One more thing," she said. "Your daughter-in-law is going to prison. You understand that? This isn't something that gets resolved with family therapy." "Good," I said. That's exactly what I'm counting on. December 23rd. Amanda made her final mistake. She'd gotten careless, confident, so certain of her victory that she stopped being careful about covering her tracks. That morning, she left real estate documents on the kitchen counter while she ran errands, just sitting there in plain sight. Probably figured I was too drugged to understand what I was looking at even if I saw them. I photographed every page. Sale and purchase agreement. Seller Kenneth Turner. Buyer Peterson Development Group. Sale price $950,000. Closing date December 29th, 4 days after Christmas. She'd already sold my house, the house Dorothy and I had bought in 1991. The house where we'd raised Stephen, the house where Dorothy had died in our bedroom with my hand holding hers, the house that held 33 years of memories. Sold. Without my knowledge, without my signature, using power of attorney documents that didn't exist yet because the court hearing wasn't scheduled until January 15th. But Amanda had been so confident the hearing was a formality that she'd gone ahead and arranged the sale. Had signed documents as my attorney, in fact, before she legally had that authority. Another crime. Another piece of evidence. I took photos of the earnest money receipt. $20,000 deposited by Peterson Development. The same $20,000 Amanda had claimed came from her savings when she put the deposit on the Florida condo. She'd used the buyer's deposit to fund her own escape plan. Had already spent money that should have gone toward the purchase of my home. But what Amanda didn't know was that I'd been busy too, making my own calls, arranging my own transactions, because two could play at the real estate game. While she'd been meeting with Peterson Development, I'd been meeting with Patricia Monroe, setting up a trust, transferring ownership of my house into a legal entity that Amanda's power of attorney wouldn't touch. While she'd been planning how to spend my money, I'd been planning how to protect it. While she'd been signing fraudulent documents, I'd been documenting her fraud. The sale to Peterson Development would never close, because by December 29th, Amanda would be in jail and the house would be in a trust she couldn't access. But I wasn't going to tell her that yet. Wasn't going to stop her. Wasn't going to warn her that she was committing felonies on top of felonies. Because sometimes the best way to catch a criminal is to let them keep committing crimes until the evidence is overwhelming. Until there's no possible defense. Until even the most sympathetic jury would vote to convict. That afternoon, I called Patricia Monroe. She's already sold the house, I told her. Without power of attorney, Patricia sounded shocked. She's using documents she hasn't gotten court approval for yet. Signing my name to things I never authorized. That's forgery. That's fraud. That's going to add years to her sentence. Good, I said. I want her to face every single consequence. Kenneth, Patricia said carefully. You could stop this right now. File a police report today. Get her arrested before she can do more damage. No, she has a timeline. Christmas morning she shows Stephen the commitment papers, convinces him I need to be locked away, gets him to agree. Then December 26th she files the court documents. And you want to catch her in the act. I want my son to see who he married before the police take her away. I want there to be no doubt, no room for him to think it was a misunderstanding or that I overreacted. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she chose the wrong day to make her final move. Yes, I said, she did. December 25th, 2024. Christmas morning. Amanda woke up early. I could hear her humming in the kitchen, probably thinking about her new Florida condo, about the life she was going to build with my money, about how close she was to finally being free of the burden of pretending to care about her elderly father-in-law. She brought me my coffee at 8:30. Same routine, same blue mug, same concerned smile. Here you go, Dad. Merry Christmas. I took it gratefully, made a show of sipping it slowly while she bustled around preparing for Stephen and Isaiah's arrival. What she didn't see was me pouring most of it into the potted plant beside my chair, the same plant that had been slowly dying for weeks. Brown leaves, drooping stems, poisoned by the daily doses of Ambien Amanda thought I was drinking. By 10 o'clock, Stephen and Isaiah arrived with presents and forced Christmas cheer. My 12-year-old grandson gave me a careful hug, the kind you give someone you think is fragile, someone who might break if you hold too tight. "Hi, Grandpa," he said softly. "Mom says you're not feeling very good." "I'm feeling better than I have in months," I told him. It was true. My mind was clear, sharp, ready for what was coming. Amanda shot me a look, quick, worried, like I'd deviated from the script. "Dad's having one of his clearer moments," she explained to Isaiah with a gentle laugh. They come and go now. We just enjoy them while they last. Isaiah nodded uncertainly, looked at me like he was trying to figure out if I was really there or just pretending to be. During gift opening, Amanda kept checking her watch. She had a timeline to follow, a performance to give, a family to convince that locking me away was the compassionate choice. At 11:30, she made her move. "Stephen, can I talk to you privately in the kitchen?" Isaiah was distracted with his new video game console, the expensive one Amanda had bought with my stolen pension money. I followed quietly, staying just around the corner where I could hear everything, where the recorder in my cardigan pocket could capture every word. "Your father had another episode Tuesday night," Amanda began. Her voice carried that perfect note of exhausted patience. "He was wandering the neighborhood at 2 in the morning, in his underwear. Mrs. Johnson had to call me. Another lie. I'd been asleep in my bed at 2 a.m. Tuesday. But Mrs. Johnson was 87 and wouldn't contradict Amanda even if asked. I didn't want to ruin Christmas," Amanda continued. "But we can't wait any longer. Dr. Harrison says Kenneth needs immediate placement." I heard the rustle of papers. She was showing Stephen the commitment documents, the fraudulent diagnosis, the carefully constructed evidence of my incompetence. "Shady Oaks has a bed available January 3rd. I've already filled out the paperwork." Stephen's voice was uncertain. "Amanda, this seems so sudden." That's when I knew it was time. Time to step into that kitchen. Time to end Amanda's performance. Time to show my son exactly who he'd married. Time to reveal that the confused old black man she thought she'd been poisoning into submission had been 3 steps ahead of her the entire time. I reached into my pocket, made sure the recorder was still running, made sure my phone was ready to call Detective Rodriguez. Then I stepped around the corner into the kitchen. Amanda's voice carried that perfect tone of exhausted compassion as she spoke to Stephen in the kitchen. "Danny, look at these incident reports." She rustled papers. "Violent outbursts, bathroom accidents, leaving the stove on 3 separate times. I've been protecting you from how bad it's gotten. All fabricated, every single incident. But the documents looked official. Had dates, had details, had Amanda's careful handwriting describing events that never happened." "What about the house?" Stephen asked. "We'll have to sell it, of course. The memory care facility costs $4,800 monthly. Even with his pension and insurance, we'll need the equity to cover his care." Stephen's voice was uncertain. "How long do these facilities? What's the average stay?" Amanda's tone went gentle, sympathetic, like she was delivering difficult news with compassion. "Honey, people with your father's condition don't typically live more than 3 to 5 years. The decline is progressive, irreversible, but at least he'll be safe, properly medicated, in an environment designed for people like him." People like him. The phrase hung in the air. People like your elderly black father who can't take care of himself anymore, who needs white professionals to manage his life because he's clearly incapable. "I know this is hard," Amanda continued. "But think about Isaiah. Do you want him remembering his grandfather as a confused, angry old man? Better to preserve the good memories. Let the professionals handle the decline." That's when I stepped into the kitchen. What good memories would those be? "Amanda." She spun around, face going pale, like she'd seen a ghost. "Dad, you should be resting. 18 months of good memories." I continued, my voice steady, clear, nothing confused about it, like when you told everyone I had bathroom accidents I never had, or when you claimed I threw a coffee mug at you. Stephen looked between us, confused. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I reached into my cardigan pocket, pulled out the digital recorder, set it on the kitchen counter. "I'm talking about this," I said, pressed play. Amanda's voice filled the kitchen, clear, undeniable. "The beauty is, it's all legal. Power of attorney for an incompetent relative. The court will thank us for taking such good care of poor confused Kenneth." Stephen's face went white. Amanda grabbed for the recorder. "This is fake. Stephen, your father is delusional. This is exactly what I mean about his paranoid episodes." I pulled out my phone, showed them the video footage. Amanda, clear as day, crushing pills with the back of a spoon, stirring them into my coffee. "December 18th, 8:49 a.m., I said calmly. "December 19th, same time. I have 18 different videos, Stephen. Your wife has been systematically poisoning me for a year and a half." That's ridiculous, Amanda said. But her voice had lost its confidence. She was backing toward the sink, looking for an exit. I pulled out the blood test results from Dr. Foster. 2.3 milligrams of zolpidem. That's a full dose of Ambien taken daily for months. The same Ambien you told me I was prescribed. The same Ambien I've never actually been prescribed. Stephen stared at the lab results. Then at his wife. Then at me. Amanda, you've been drugging him. Of course not. She was panicking now, voice rising. This is exactly what Dr. Harrison warned about. The paranoid delusions, the accusations. Your father needs help. I fast-forwarded to another clip, Amanda's voice again. Once he's committed, we visit twice a year and play the grieving family. Meanwhile, we sell the house and move to Florida like we planned. Stephen stood frozen, processing, understanding spreading across his face like ice water. Patricia, he said slowly, you've been planning to leave another clip, the worst one. And if he dies in that place, which honestly wouldn't be the worst thing, we inherit everything free and clear. The silence in that kitchen was absolute. Isaiah appeared in the doorway, video game controller still in his hand. Why is everyone so quiet, he asked, and why is Mom crying? Because sometimes, I said, gently pulling my grandson close, even the people we trust make terrible choices. And sometimes the only way to stop them is to show everyone the truth. Stephen stood there staring at the documents Amanda had spread on the counter, the commitment papers, the incident reports, the carefully constructed evidence of my incompetence. Then he looked at the phone in my hand, at the video playing on the screen, at his wife crushing pills into coffee with methodical precision. Amanda, he said slowly, you've been drugging him. She grabbed for my phone. I stepped back, held it out of reach. This is taken out of context, she said desperately. Stephen, your father has been having episodes, accusing me of things. This is exactly what Dr. Harrison warned us about. I pulled out another document. The blood test results from Dr. Foster. 2.3 milligrams of zolpidem, I said. Taken daily for 18 months. Causing exactly the symptoms your wife has been describing to doctors. Memory loss, confusion, drowsiness. All of it caused by the drugs she's been putting in my coffee. Stephen took the lab results, read them carefully. His hands were shaking. Dad, how long have you known? Since November. The day I accidentally skipped my morning coffee and realized my mind was clear for the first time in months. Amanda was backing toward the door now, looking for an escape route. You don't understand the pressure I've been under, she said, voice rising. Your father was depressed, barely functional after Dorothy died. I was trying to help. By poisoning him, Stephen's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. The medication calmed him down, made him easier to manage, easier to rob, I said. You've stolen $43,000 from my accounts in the past year. I pulled out the bank statements, highlighted in yellow. Every withdrawal, every forged check, every credit card charge in my name that I'd never authorized. Stephen looked at the statements, then at Amanda, then back at me. How much of this is true? All of it, I said, and I can prove every word. I spread the evidence across the kitchen table like a prosecutor presenting to a jury, the timeline in Amanda's handwriting, the real estate listings for Florida condos, the sale documents for my house, the POA papers she'd already filled out before getting court approval. She's already sold the house, I told Stephen, $950,000 to Peterson Development. Closing date, December 29th, 4 days from now. Stephen picked up the sale documents, stared at them. Amanda, you sold his house. Without telling me we need the money, she said, for his care, for our future, for your Florida condo, I corrected, the one you put $20,000 down on, $20,000 stolen from my pension. Stephen looked at his wife like he was seeing her for the first time, like 13 years of marriage were evaporating in real time. How long have you been planning this? I answered for her. 18 months, since the day after we buried Dorothy. I pulled out my phone again, played the recording from December 18th. Amanda's voice filled the kitchen. By New Year's, we'll effectively be millionaires. The house alone is worth $950. Add the life insurance, his pension, buy out the investment accounts. We're looking at over $1 million. Stephen's face had gone from white to gray. You were going to take everything. It was supposed to be for us, Amanda said, for our family, for Isaiah's future. Isaiah was still standing in the doorway, old enough to understand what he was hearing, old enough to know his mother had done something terrible. "Mom," he said quietly, "did you really poison Grandpa?" Amanda looked at her son, at her husband, at me, at the evidence spread across the table that destroyed every lie she'd told. "I need to leave," she said. "I need to get out of here." She moved toward the door. That's when I sent the text to Detective Rodriguez. "You're not going anywhere," I said calmly. "Detective Rodriguez has been parked outside for the past hour, waiting for my signal." Amanda froze. "What I called the police 3 days ago, gave them copies of everything. They're waiting in an unmarked car in the driveway. Through the kitchen window we could see the sedan, 2 people in the front seat, watching the house." Steve and Amanda said desperately, "You can't let them do this. I'm your wife. I'm Isaiah's mother." Stephen looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at me, at the evidence, at the 18 months of systematic abuse laid out in documents and recordings and videos. "You poisoned my father," he said quietly. "You stole from him. You tried to have him locked away so you could steal his house." Amanda opened her mouth, closed it, no defense left. I pulled out my phone, called Detective Rodriguez. "We're ready," I said. 30 seconds later there was a knock at the door, and Amanda Peterson's carefully constructed plan collapsed in the space between one breath and the next. Detective Rodriguez's knock came exactly when I expected it. Firm, professional, the sound of consequences arriving. "Mr. Turner," she said as I opened the door, "we're ready to proceed." She was flanked by Officer Martinez and a crime scene photographer. All business, all evidence. "Amanda Peterson Turner." Detective Rodriguez said formally, stepping into the kitchen. "You're under arrest for elder abuse in the first-degree fraud, forgery, theft, and conspiracy to commit involuntary commitment." "This is insane." Amanda backed toward the sink. "Stephen, tell them your father is delusional. You have the right to remain silent." Detective Rodriguez continued, pulling out handcuffs. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Amanda made one last desperate play. "Officer, I'm this man's primary caregiver. He has severe dementia and has been making wild accusations for months. You can ask his doctors, ma'am. We've reviewed 18 months of evidence." Detective Rodriguez's voice was flat, unamused. "Video footage of you crushing pills into his coffee. Audio recordings of you admitting to drugging him. Medical documentation proving systematic poisoning. Blood tests showing zolpidem levels consistent with daily dosing." The photographer was already taking pictures of my evidence spread across the kitchen table. The timeline, the bank statements, the commitment papers, the real estate documents. These recordings could be fabricated. Amanda tried. "Stephen, you know I would never hurt your father." Detective Rodriguez played a clip from my recorder. "Once he's committed, we can visit twice a year and play the grieving family. Meanwhile, we sell the house and move to Florida." Amanda's shoulders sagged. "That's taken out of context." "What context makes drugging an elderly man acceptable?" Officer Martinez asked. Stephen finally spoke up. His voice was hollow. "Destroyed." "Detective, I had no idea any of this was happening. Amanda told me Dad was getting worse, that he needed professional care. I believed her." "Mr. Turner, the younger." "Mr. Turner," Detective Rodriguez clarified. "You're not under investigation. Our evidence shows you were deceived along with your father." Isaiah had been standing silently by my side, watching his mother get handcuffed. When Amanda looked at him with desperate eyes, he moved closer to me. "Grandpa," he whispered, "were you really sick?" "No," I said quietly. "I was never sick. Your mom was putting medicine in my coffee that made me sleepy and confused." "Why would she do that?" I wanted to say. "Because sometimes people choose money over family. Because sometimes adults make terrible choices. Because his mother had decided stealing was easier than working. Instead, I just pulled him closer. Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big ones." Detective Rodriguez was reading Amanda her Miranda rights while Officer Martinez documented the crime scene. The pill crusher still in the kitchen drawer. The mason jars of drugged coffee I'd saved as evidence. The commitment papers with forged signatures. "The district attorney will be filing formal charges tomorrow," Detective Rodriguez told me. "Elder abuse in the first-degree fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and theft. She's looking at 3 to 7 years in state prison." "What about the house sale?" Stephen asked suddenly. His voice was numb. That's when I allowed myself to smile. Small, grim, satisfied. "Funny thing about that," I said. Amanda did sell the house to Peterson Development, signed all the papers Tuesday morning while you were at work. Stephen looked confused. But how can they arrest her if the sale was legal? Because Peterson Development is owned by my attorney, Patricia Monroe. The sale was designed to prevent Amanda from profiting from her crimes. Patricia created a shell company, made a legitimate offer, and Amanda signed over the deed thinking she was about to become rich. Detective Rodriguez looked impressed. You set up a sting operation I knew she'd try to close before I could be committed. So Patricia made it easy for her, made Amanda think she was getting exactly what she wanted. Amanda stared at me in horror. You can't do that. Power of attorney obtained through fraud is invalid, Detective Rodriguez said. The sale is void. But we already spent the down payment, Amanda screamed. The Florida condo, the deposits, everything. The Florida condo will be repossessed, I said calmly. Along with everything else you bought with my stolen money. As they led Amanda toward the police car, she turned back one last time. You'll never be able to take care of yourself, she shouted. You need me. I looked at my son, my grandson, the police officers treating me with respect and dignity. Then I looked at Amanda. The only thing I needed was for you to stop poisoning me. The car door slammed shut. And Amanda Peterson Turner disappeared from our lives. But the biggest surprise was still waiting in my study. After Amanda was taken away, Stephen sat at my kitchen table, head in his hands, Isaiah beside him, both of them trying to process what had just happened. I made coffee, real coffee, no poison. Set a mug in front of my son, Dad, he said finally. How long have you known? Since November 1st, the day I accidentally didn't drink the coffee and realized my mind was clear. 4 months. He looked up at me. You've been investigating her for 4 months. I've been documenting what she was doing. There's a difference. I pulled out the complete evidence file, showed him everything. The timeline Amanda had written in her own hand, the bank statements showing $43,000 in theft, the real estate listings for Florida, the commitment papers she'd prepared before having legal authority. The medical reports were what broke him. I laid them side by side on the table. Dr. Harrison's diagnosis dated December 15th. Moderate to severe cognitive impairment. Recommendation for immediate memory care placement. Right next to it, Dr. Foster's cognitive assessment dated December 13th. 95th percentile for age group. No signs of impairment whatsoever. 3 days apart, Stephen said. He examined you 3 days before Dr. Harrison and found nothing wrong. Dr. Harrison never actually examined me. I performed confusion for 20 minutes based entirely on Amanda's lies. She told him I was violent, paranoid, incontinent. None of it true. But he signed the papers anyway. Stephen picked up Amanda's handwritten timeline, read through it slowly. She had it all planned out, every step, like a business project, like stealing $1 million, I said, which is what she was doing. The $20,000 deposit, Stephen said. That was your money, my pension. She's been redirecting my checks for months, forging my signature on withdrawal slips, using credit cards in my name. I trusted her, Stephen said quietly. I believed everything she told me about you getting worse, about needing help, about being dangerous. That's what she counted on. That you'd trust your wife, that doctors would trust a concerned daughter-in-law, that no one would question a white woman's word about an elderly black man's decline. Stephen flinched at that, but he didn't deny it. Isaiah had been quiet through all of this. Now he spoke up. Dad, did you really think Grandpa was sick? Stephen looked at his son, at me, at the evidence spread across the table. Yes, he said, I did, because your mother was very good at lying, and I wasn't paying close enough attention to notice. Grandpa seems fine to me, Isaiah said. He always has. From the mouths of babes. Stephen reached across the table, put his hand over mine. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have known, should have questioned, should have talked to you alone instead of just believing her version. You were deceived, I said, by someone you loved, someone you trusted. That's not your fault. But I should have protected you. You couldn't protect me from something you didn't know was happening. But now you know. And now we make sure it never happens to anyone else. What happens now? Now Amanda faces trial. Now we rebuild. Now you and Isaiah stay in my life without someone poisoning it. Stephen nodded, squeezed my hand. And the house. I smiled. That's when I tell you about what I'm planning to do with it. Stephen paced the kitchen after Amanda was taken away. Connecting pieces, seeing the pattern he'd missed for 18 months. The wandering episode, he said. That never happened, did it? I was asleep in my bed at 2 a.m. Every night, every Tuesday, every time she claimed I was confused. The stove left on. Fiction. The bathroom accidents. Complete fabrication. Stephen stopped pacing, looked at me. But why? If you needed help, if we were struggling financially, Dad would have helped. You always have. That's when the door opened. Amanda stood there in handcuffs with Detective Rodriguez behind her. They'd come back for her purse, for evidence collection. Amanda heard Stephen's question, and something in her finally broke. Help us, what she screamed. Scrape by in this house forever. Watch you work at that school district job until your back gives out. I'm 42 years old, Stephen. I deserve better than this. There it was, the truth behind 18 months of lies. Better than what I asked quietly. A family that loves you. A home with no mortgage. A husband who works 60 hours a week to support you. Better than being poor, she spat. Your little professor pension wasn't solving our problems. $3,000 a month. That's nothing. That's poverty. My friends from college are living in real houses, taking real vacations, not counting every dollar. We weren't poor, Stephen said. His voice was very quiet, very controlled. We had everything we needed. Isaiah stepped closer to me, instinctively understanding who the real threat was, who'd been lying all along. You have no idea what it's like, Amanda continued. Living in your father's shadow, in this neighborhood where everyone knows he was some important professor, where people look at me like I married down, like I should be grateful. You married my son, I said. Not down, not up. You married a good man who loved you. I married a public school administrator who makes $58,000 a year, Amanda shot back. Do you know what my college roommate's husband makes? $200,000. She has a house in Adena, a lake cabin. Her kids go to private schools. Our son goes to public schools, Stephen said. The same schools I work for. The same schools that gave me an education. Amanda laughed. Bitter, ugly, exactly. And look where that got you. Stephen stared at his wife like she was a stranger. I thought you loved me. I did. I do. But love doesn't pay for the life I deserve. The life you deserve, I repeated, by stealing mine. I pulled out the credit card statements, the ones I'd been saving, spread them across the table. $15,000 on clothes and jewelry, $8,000 on spa treatments and salon visits, $6,000 on restaurants and entertainment, all charged to cards in my name, all with forged signatures. Amanda's face went red. You were spying on me. I was documenting theft, I corrected. Every purchase you made with my money while telling Stephen we were broke, while convincing him I needed to be locked away so you could steal my house. We needed that money, Amanda said. No, I said. You wanted that money. There's a difference. Detective Rodriguez stepped forward. Mrs. Turner, we need to go. But Amanda wasn't done. One last desperate attempt. Stephen, you're going to let them take me. I'm your wife. I'm Isaiah's mother. Stephen looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at me, at Isaiah, at 18 months of lies laid out in evidence. You poisoned my father, he said, and Amanda had nothing left to say. Detective Rodriguez led Amanda out of the kitchen, through the living room where Isaiah's unopened Christmas presents sat under the tree, past the family photos on the wall showing happier times that now felt like lies. At the front door, Amanda tried one more time. Stephen, please, think about Isaiah. Think about our family. You can't let them do this. Stephen stood beside me, put his hand on my shoulder. You destroyed our family the day you started poisoning my father. The door closed behind her. Through the window, we watched Detective Rodriguez guide Amanda into the unmarked sedan. Watched her duck her head as she got into the back seat. Watched the car pull away. Isaiah was crying, quiet tears, the kind kids cry when their world has just shattered and they don't fully understand why. I pulled him close, let him cry into my shoulder. Is Mom going to jail? He asked. Yes, I said, for a long time, because she hurt you, because she made choices that hurt a lot of people. And sometimes when you make those choices, you have to face the consequences. Stephen sat down heavily on the couch, looked at the Christmas tree, at the presents, at the remnants of the morning that had started with forced cheer and ended with his wife in handcuffs. "What do I tell people?" he asked. "My colleagues, Isaiah's school, our friends. The truth," I said, "that Amanda was stealing from me, that she tried to have me committed, that she's been arrested for elder abuse and fraud. They'll blame me. They'll think I should have known. Maybe some will. But most will understand that you were deceived by someone you trusted. That's not a character flaw. That's being human." Detective Rodriguez came back inside. Without Amanda this time, she had paperwork for me to sign, evidence receipts, witness statements. "Mr. Turner," she said, "I want you to know that what you did documenting everything so carefully, that's what's going to put her away. Most elder abuse cases fall apart because there's no hard evidence, just one person's word against another's. How long will she get with this evidence? 3 to 7 years. Maybe more if the DA can prove she was planning your death as part of the scheme." "She was," I said. "I have recordings of her discussing mortality statistics, hoping I'd die within 2 years so she could inherit without the burden of visiting." Detective Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Then we'll push for the maximum. I'll make sure the DA knows about those recordings." After she left, Stephen made lunch. Sandwiches, the automatic movements of someone trying to maintain normalcy when everything has collapsed. We ate in silence. Isaiah picked at his food. Stephen stared at his plate. Finally, Isaiah spoke. "Grandpa, were you scared?" "Every day," I admitted. "Scared that no one would believe me. Scared that I'd end up locked away. Scared that I'd die before I could prove what she was doing. But you weren't really confused. You were pretending. After November, yes. Before that, the drugs made everything foggy. I really couldn't think clearly, couldn't remember things, couldn't trust my own mind. That must have been terrible." It was. But it also taught me something important, that you don't give up just because things seem hopeless. You document, you plan, you wait for the right moment. Like in chess, Isaiah said. He played chess at school, was good at it. You wait for your opponent to make a mistake. Exactly like chess. Amanda thought she was winning, thought she had me trapped, but she made mistakes, and I documented every one. Stephen finally looked up. "What happens to the house?" I smiled. "That's the good news. The sale to Peterson Development is void. Patricia owns the company. It was a sting to catch Amanda in the act of fraud, so you still own it for now. But I'm not keeping it." Stephen looked confused. "What are you going to do with it?" "I'm going to deed it to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, in Dorothy's name. Let her memory fund civil rights work. Let it help families fight back against the kind of abuse Amanda tried to pull. Dad, that's almost $1 million. "I know, and I can't think of a better use for it. Dorothy would have loved knowing her home was helping people fight for justice." Stephen nodded slowly, understanding, maybe even proud. "Where will you live?" "I've already arranged an apartment at Oakwood Senior Living, independent living, community activities, weekly book club. It's perfect, and we can visit every Sunday if you want." Isaiah looked up. "Really, really. No more poison, no more lies. Just us." For the first time that day, Isaiah smiled. December 26th, the day after Christmas that should have been about leftovers and relaxation. Instead, Stephen and I sat in Patricia Monroe's office while she prepared the legal paperwork. "The arraignment is tomorrow," Patricia said. "Amanda will be formally charged. Elder abuse in the first-degree fraud, forgery, conspiracy, theft. Bail will likely be set at $50,000. "Will she make bail?" Stephen asked. "Not with what Patricia said. Her accounts are frozen pending investigation. The $20,000 she put down on the Florida condo is being returned to you as restitution. She has no access to funds." "Good," I said. Patricia pulled out another set of documents. "Now about the house. You want to deed it to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in Dorothy's name. Let it fund scholarships, civil rights work, help families fight back against this kind of abuse. The house is appraised at $950,000. After taxes, the donation will be worth approximately $800,000 to the organization." "Perfect." Stephen watched me sign the papers, watched me give away the house he'd grown up in, the house that held 33 years of memories. "Dad, are you sure about this?" "Your mother spent her last months worrying about my future, afraid I'd be vulnerable, afraid someone would take advantage of me. This way, her memory protects other people, helps families like ours. It's incredibly generous. It's what Dorothy would have wanted." By noon, the deed transfer was complete. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund now owned my family home, would sell it and use the proceeds for scholarships in Dorothy Turner's name. December 27th, Amanda's arraignment. I attended with Stephen, sat in the gallery while she faced Judge Williams. Your Honor, Amanda's public defender said. My client was acting as a devoted caregiver to an elderly man with advancing dementia. Counselor Judge Williams interrupted. I've reviewed the evidence. Video footage of your client systematically drugging the alleged victim. Audio recordings of her admitting to an 18-month fraud scheme. Medical documentation proving the victim has no cognitive impairment whatsoever. Amanda stood in her orange jumpsuit, finally understanding that her lies wouldn't work in a courtroom. How does your client plead to charges of elder abuse in the first-degree fraud, forgery, and conspiracy? Not guilty, Your Honor. Judge Williams set bail at $50,000. Money Amanda no longer had access to. After the hearing, Detective Rodriguez found me in the hallway. Mr. Turner, I wanted you to know the Florida Condo Company is cooperating fully. They're returning Amanda's down payment as part of restitution. I don't want the money back, I said. Donate it to elder abuse prevention programs. You're sure I'm 76 years old with everything I need. Let that money help someone else. Stephen walked with me to the parking lot. Dad, what you're doing giving away all that money, it's remarkable. It's not remarkable. It's just right. March 15th, 2025, 3 months after Christmas. Amanda pleaded guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. I sat in the courtroom gallery watching Judge Williams deliver the sentence. Your Honor, Amanda's attorney began. My client accepts responsibility for her actions. She was overwhelmed by caretaking responsibilities and made poor choices under extreme stress. Judge Williams looked at Amanda over her reading glasses. Mrs. Turner, your actions represent a particularly cruel form of elder abuse. You systematically poisoned a grieving widower. You stole $43,000 from his accounts. You forged medical documents. You attempted to have him permanently institutionalized for your financial gain. This wasn't stress. This was calculated theft. Amanda's shoulders shook as she stood there. I'm sentencing you to 4 years in state prison, $50,000 in restitution to Mr. Turner, and a permanent restraining order preventing contact with Mr. Turner or your son Isaiah. 4 years. It felt like both too much and not nearly enough. Stephen filed for divorce the same week. Full custody of Isaiah. Amanda would have no visitation rights until her release in 2029. Today I'm sitting in my apartment at Oakwood Senior Living, sharp as ever at 76, clear-minded, free. Isaiah visits every Sunday. We read books together. James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Frederick Douglass, the writers Dorothy and I used to teach, the writers who understood what it meant to fight for dignity in a world that tried to diminish you. I volunteer 3 days a week at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund office. Share my story with other families. Help them recognize the warning signs of elder abuse. Document, preserve evidence, fight back. The scholarship fund from Dorothy's house has already helped 12 students attend college. 12 young people who might not have had that opportunity otherwise. Amanda gets out in 2029. By then, Isaiah will be 16. Old enough to understand who his mother really was. Old enough to make his own choices about forgiveness and relationship. Some people think revenge is about anger, but the sweetest justice is simply living well, surrounded by people who see your humanity first, who value your mind, who don't look at your age or your race and see weakness to exploit. Dorothy used to say that the best defense against lies is documentation. She was right. Every video, every recording, every blood test, every piece of evidence became a brick in the wall that protected me. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a 76-year-old man quietly pouring poisoned coffee into mason jars. Sometimes it's knowing when to perform weakness so the enemy reveals themselves. Sometimes it's trusting that truth properly documented is stronger than well-rehearsed lies. Amanda counted on me being too old to fight back. Too black for anyone to believe, too grief-stricken to notice. She was wrong about all three, and that made all the difference. December 26th, 9 in the morning. I drove to Patricia Monroe's office with Stephen and Isaiah. The day after Christmas. The day after Amanda's arrest. The day I'd start rebuilding. Kenneth, Patricia said as we sat down. The Peterson development sale is officially void as of this morning. The property reverts to your ownership. Good, I said. Now I want to make a real sale. I handed her a folder. Inside contact information for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Articles about their scholarship programs, their work fighting voter suppression, their legal defense of families facing discrimination. I want to deed the house to them as a charitable donation, in Dorothy's memory. Stephen looked shocked. Dad, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Your mother spent her last months worrying about my future, afraid I'd be alone and vulnerable after she was gone. This way, her memory funds civil rights work, helps families fight back against exactly the kind of abuse Amanda tried to pull. Patricia reviewed the paperwork. The house is appraised at $950,000. After taxes, the donation will be worth approximately $850,000 to the association. Perfect. I want it finalized today. That's incredibly generous, Kenneth. Where will you live? I smiled. Oakwood Senior Living. I toured it yesterday. Independent living apartments, community activities, weekly book club. Dorothy would have loved it there. You've already arranged it. Moved my deposit yesterday. I can move in January 15th. Patricia made notes, pulled up documents on her computer, started the paperwork. Stephen sat beside me processing, watching me give away the house he'd grown up in. The house that held all our family memories. Dad, are you sure? I'm sure. This house was supposed to be our legacy, mine and Dorothy's. But Amanda tried to turn it into theft, into something ugly. This way it becomes what it was always meant to be, something that helps people, something that fights injustice. Mom would be proud, Stephen said quietly. By noon, the deed transfer was complete. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund now owned my family home. They'd sell it, use the proceeds to fund the Dorothy Turner Memorial Scholarship, help young black students attend college, support families fighting discrimination. Patricia printed out the final documents, handed them to me to sign. This is one of the most meaningful donations the fund has ever received, she said. Your wife's name will help people for generations. That's all I wanted, I said. For Dorothy's memory to mean something, to do something, to fight back against people who think age and race make you weak. We left Patricia's office at 1 p.m., drove to Oakwood Senior Living so Stephen and Isaiah could see my new apartment. It was small, 1 bedroom, kitchenette, but the windows faced east, got good morning light, and the community room had a piano Dorothy would have loved. This is nice, Grandpa, Isaiah said. Can I come visit every Sunday if you want? We can read together, play chess, whatever you like, and no one will try to lock you up. No one will try to lock me up. Stephen stood at the window looking out at the courtyard where residents were playing cards. Dad, he said, I'm sorry I didn't see what Amanda was doing. You loved her. You trusted her. That's not something to apologize for. I should have protected you. You did, I said. By believing me when it mattered. By standing with me when the truth came out. That's all I needed. December 27th, Amanda's arraignment. I attended with Stephen. Sat in the gallery while she faced Judge Williams. She wore an orange jumpsuit, hair pulled back without her usual careful styling, no makeup, looking smaller somehow, less powerful. Your Honor, her public defender began. My client was acting as a devoted caregiver to an elderly man with advancing dementia. She made some questionable financial decisions under extreme stress, but her intentions were always to help. Judge Williams held up a hand. Counselor, I've reviewed the evidence submitted by the prosecution. Video footage of your client systematically drugging the alleged victim over multiple days. Audio recordings of her admitting to an 18-month fraud scheme. Medical documentation proving the victim has no cognitive impairment whatsoever. This isn't a case of caregiver stress. This is systematic elder abuse. The public defender swallowed hard. How does your client plead to the charges, elder abuse in the first-degree fraud, in the first-degree forgery conspiracy, to commit involuntary commitment and theft? Not guilty, Your Honor. Amanda's voice was barely audible. The confident woman who'd poisoned my coffee and planned my imprisonment had disappeared. In her place stood someone who finally understood the consequences were real. Judge Williams reviewed the bail request. Bail is set at $50,000. Amanda's shoulders sagged. She had no access to $50,000. Her accounts were frozen. The Florida condo deposit had been returned to my account as restitution. The money she'd stolen was being recovered piece by piece. She'd spend the time until trial in county jail. After the hearing, Detective Rodriguez found me in the hallway. Mr. Turner. I wanted you to know the Florida condo company is cooperating fully. They're returning Amanda's down payment. $20,000 will be deposited back into your account within the week. I don't want it, I said. She looked surprised. Sir, I don't want the money back. Donate it to elder abuse prevention programs. Let it help other families recognize the warning signs. Let it fund education and support. Mr. Turner, that's $20,000. I know exactly what it is. It's blood money. It's what Amanda stole from me to fund her escape plan. I don't want it in my account. I want it helping people. Detective Rodriguez nodded slowly. I'll make sure it goes to the right programs. Stephen and I walked to the parking lot in silence. The December cold bit at our faces. Clean, sharp. She looked scared, Stephen said finally. She should be scared. She's facing 4 to 7 years in prison. Do you feel sorry for her? I thought about that. About Amanda standing there in orange. About her life collapsing. About her son growing up without her. No, I said. I feel sorry for Isaiah. But not for her. March 15th, 2025. 3 months after Christmas. Amanda pleaded guilty to avoid trial. Accepted a plea deal that would spare Isaiah from testifying. Spare him from having to explain in court how his mother had poisoned his grandfather. I sat in the courtroom gallery beside Stephen. Watched Judge Williams review the plea agreement. Mrs. Turner, Judge Williams said, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting to all charges elder abuse in the first degree, fraud, forgery, conspiracy, theft? Yes, Your Honor. Amanda's voice was small, broken. And you understand the sentencing guidelines? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Williams looked at Amanda for a long moment. Then she spoke. Mrs. Turner, your actions represent a particularly cruel form of elder abuse. You systematically poisoned a grieving widower over 18 months. You stole $43,000 from his accounts. You forged medical documents. You attempted to have him permanently institutionalized purely for financial gain. Amanda's shoulders began to shake. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This wasn't caregiver stress. This was calculated, premeditated theft. You exploited your position of trust. You exploited your father-in-law's grief, and you counted on his age and race, making him easy to dismiss if he tried to fight back. The courtroom was silent. I'm sentencing you to 4 years in state prison, $50,000 in restitution to Mr. Kenneth Turner, and a permanent restraining order preventing any contact with Mr. Turner or your minor son, Isaiah Turner, for the duration of your sentence and beyond, 4 years. Amanda would be 46 when she got out. Isaiah would be 16, old enough to make his own decisions about whether to have a relationship with his mother. Stephen filed for divorce the following week. Full custody of Isaiah. Amanda would have no visitation rights until her release, and even then, only if Isaiah agreed. As we left the courtroom, Stephen put his hand on my shoulder. It's over, he said. No, I corrected gently. It's not over. It's just beginning. Now we rebuild. Now we make sure Isaiah grows up knowing what integrity looks like, what justice looks like, what it means to fight back against people who try to diminish you. Now we honor Dorothy's memory by living well. Today I'm sitting in my apartment at Oakwood Senior Living, 76 years old, mind sharp, body healthy, free. The apartment is small but mine. 1 bedroom with east-facing windows, kitchenette where I make my own coffee, no poison, no lies. Just black coffee and morning light. Isaiah visits every Sunday. We sit at my small table and read together. James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, Langston Hughes, the writers Dorothy and I used to teach, the writers who understood what it meant to maintain dignity in a world that tried to diminish you. 3 days a week, I volunteer at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund office downtown. Share my story with families facing elder abuse. Help them recognize the warning signs. Teach them about documentation, about preserving evidence, about fighting back when people assume your age or your race makes you powerless. The Dorothy Turner Memorial Scholarship has already sent 12 students to college, 12 young people who might not have had that opportunity. 12 futures built on the foundation Dorothy and I created together. Amanda gets out in 2029. 4 years from now, she'll be 46. Isaiah will be 16, old enough to understand who his mother really was, old enough to make his own choices about forgiveness and relationship. Some people think justice is about revenge, about punishment, about making people suffer the way they made you suffer. But real justice is simpler than that. It's living well. It's being surrounded by people who see your humanity. It's turning pain into purpose and loss into legacy. Dorothy used to say that the best way to fight darkness is to create light. That's what I'm doing now. Creating light. One scholarship, one family helped. One Sunday afternoon with my grandson. Amanda tried to erase me. Instead, she gave me a story worth telling, and that made all the difference. Sitting in my apartment at Oakwood watching Isaiah do homework at my kitchen table, I understand something I wish I'd known earlier. Elder abuse doesn't always look like violence. Sometimes it looks like a concerned daughter-in-law making coffee. Sometimes it wears a smile while crushing pills. Sometimes it speaks softly about what's best for Dad while forging documents to steal everything he owns. For 18 months, Amanda counted on 3 things: that I was too old to fight back, that I was too confused to notice what she was doing, and that I was too black for anyone to believe me, even if I did figure it out. She was wrong about all 3. But here's what I learned that matters most. Your age doesn't diminish your right to dignity. Your grief doesn't make you vulnerable. And your race doesn't determine who will believe your truth when you have evidence to back it up. Dorothy used to say the best defense against lies is documentation. She was right. Every recording, every video, every blood test became a brick in the wall that protected me, became proof that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. The system wanted to put me away because a white woman with the right vocabulary convinced doctors I was incompetent. But the same system had to listen when I showed up with irrefutable proof of my competence and her crimes. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a 76-year-old man quietly dumping poisoned coffee into mason jars. Sometimes it's knowing when to perform weakness so the enemy reveals themselves. Sometimes it's trusting that truth properly documented is stronger than well-rehearsed lies. Amanda gets out in 4 years. By then, Isaiah will be 16. Old enough to understand that loving someone doesn't mean accepting their betrayal. That family isn't defined by blood, but by who shows up with integrity, who treats you with dignity, who sees your humanity before they see your utility. Some people think revenge is about anger, about making someone suffer the way they made you suffer. But the sweetest justice is simpler than that. It's living well. It's being surrounded by people who see your worth. It's turning pain into purpose and loss into legacy. Dorothy tried to prepare me for this, tried to warn me, and even though she's gone, her wisdom protected me. That's the real victory. Not Amanda in prison, but me still here, still sharp, still fighting, still teaching Isaiah what strength really looks like. If this story resonated with you, if someone in your family has faced elder abuse, or if you've ever had to document truth when people refuse to believe you, share this in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from and whether you've seen the warning signs I missed for too long. Hit subscribe if you believe age doesn't equal weakness. Like this video if you think elder abuse needs more attention. Share it if you know someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to fight back. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Use it.